handcuffed didn't mean defeated. Luna sat in the cold interrogation room, wrists raw, eyes sharp, breathing steady. The media had already spun her arrest into scandal. Luna Nozawa, from arrest to handcuffs. Headlines screamed betrayal, manipulation, even fraud. But Luna wasn't rattled. She had learned quickly. In Los Angeles, truth was currency, and power was always up for negotiation. They thought they had her cornered. Arrested on suspicion of evidence tampering in a medical investigation. Possibly linked to the fabricated pregnancy. Possibly more. But what they didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that Luna was holding the one thing no one else could offer. A piece of the truth so explosive it could shift the balance of the entire Forrester Spencer dynasty war. The moment the cuffs snapped around her wrists, Luna stopped being a suspect. She became a player. She waited until her lawyer left the room. Then, calmly, she looked straight into the detective's eyes and said, "I want to make a deal. I have information, real information, about a conspiracy involving Brooke Logan and Sheila Carter. I can prove that someone tried to murder Taylor Hayes. But if you want it, I want something in return." The room froze. Within hours, word reached the Forresters. Ridge, already reeling from weeks of pressure, demanded answers. "What the hell is she talking about?" he barked in the boardroom. Steffi looked pale. If she's telling the truth, if there's even a shred of proof, Brooke could be facing attempted murder charges. But no one wanted to believe it. Brooke, the face of the Forrester brand. The perpetual survivor. The one who'd been painted as both villain and victim over decades. That Brooke? In league with Sheila? It sounded insane. Until Luna started talking. She laid it out in brutal detail. Months ago, she had walked into an off-hours meeting at Il Giardino, looking for Deacon. What she found instead was Brooke, tense, panicked, and whispering heatedly with Sheila. She hadn't heard everything, just enough to know it wasn't a friendly chat. "You owe me," Brooke had hissed. "You still have contacts. Do what I asked, and I'll make sure Taylor doesn't get in the way again." Luna had stayed hidden, shaken and confused. At the time, she didn't fully grasp what she'd overheard. But days later, Taylor suffered a near-fatal medical emergency. One Bridget had originally believed was a reaction to stress. It hadn't made sense. Taylor was healthy. Her medications were up to date. But the symptoms, rapid heart rate, confusion, dizziness, were consistent with a drug interaction or even poisoning. Then, quietly, Deacon intervened. He showed up at Taylor's house unannounced the night she nearly collapsed again. He brought her water, stayed with her until her vitals stabilized, and urged her to see Bridget immediately. That visit saved her life. A blood test revealed traces of an unusual compound. Not enough to kill, but enough to destabilize her if combined with her normal prescriptions. At the time, it was dismissed as a fluke. Now Luna was connecting the dots. She told the police everything she remembered. She named names. She described the scene. She gave them the timeline, the motive, the opportunity. Brooke had seen Taylor as a threat. To Ridge. To the family. To the peace Brooke had rebuilt over years. So she reached out to the one person desperate enough, and cruel enough, to get the job done. Sheila Carter. The bombshell detonated. Detectives reopened the old toxicology files. They pulled security footage from Il Giardino. And then the real twist surfaced. A grainy clip dated 2 nights before Taylor's collapse. Sheila at the back door. Brooke arriving minutes later. The two women talking, then parting quickly. Sheila looked furious. Brooke looked afraid. The Forrester family erupted. Steffi demanded justice. Ridge stood in stunned silence. Eric, heartbroken, muttered, "How did it come to this?" But there was one person who could still blow the case wide open. Or stop it entirely. Deacon. Luna's story placed him at the heart of it all. He had witnessed the aftermath. He had seen the signs. He had even suspected Sheila. But had kept quiet to protect hope. To protect the fragile peace he'd built since his return. Now, with Brooke on the verge of indictment, Deacon had a choice. Stay silent and let the case run its course, or come forward with what he knew and risk unraveling everything. He chose truth. Deacon walked into the LAPD headquarters voluntarily and asked to speak with the lead detective. "Luna's not lying," he said. "I never knew the full extent. But I saw enough to know something wasn't right." He recounted his own memories. Sheila panicked after the meeting with Brooke, muttering something about Taylor being too stubborn and getting what she deserves. He recalled how Sheila tried to leave town the next day, how she'd slipped something into Taylor's tea during a forced visit. He hadn't known the specifics, but the intent had been there. She was going to kill Taylor, Deacon said, voice low. Or at least hurt her. And Brooke, she knew something. Maybe not the full plan, but enough to stop it. And she didn't. The police called it corroboration. The DA called it motive. Brooke Logan was arrested within 48 hours. The image of her in handcuffs, escorted out of her Beverly Hills home, was splashed across every front page in LA. From queen to criminal, Brooke Logan behind bars, the Forrester family fractured instantly. Hope was devastated. Ridge was torn between love and fury. Katie and Donna closed ranks, hiring the best attorneys in the city. But the damage was done. Whether Brooke walked free or not, her image was permanently scarred. And Luna? She walked. The DA, acknowledging the scale of the corruption she had exposed, dropped all charges. Her arrest became a footnote to a much larger story. The unraveling of Brooke's power. The exposure of Sheila's latest manipulation. And the deep, lingering cost of buried secrets. Luna returned to her home quietly, under tight security. She didn't seek fame. She didn't give interviews. But she wasn't the same woman anymore. She had survived cancer, survived betrayal, and now she had survived the firestorm of the truth. She had learned that in Los Angeles, innocence meant nothing without leverage, and silence was rarely ever the safer option. The season ended with one final, gut-punching image. Brooke, in an orange jumpsuit, staring through the glass of a visitor room. On the other side sat Ridge. He didn't speak, he just stared, and she, finally, began to cry. Because for the first time in decades, Brooke Logan had no words. Only consequences. Deacon Sharp had never been a man of vulnerability. Charm, yes. Scheming, always. But admitting weakness? Rare. And yet, in the dim light of Il Giardino's closed bar, with a nearly empty glass in his hand and Taylor Hayes standing 10 feet away, he let the words slip before he could stop them. I need you, Taylor. Not want, not admire. Need. And Taylor, in all her practiced calm and analytical grace, froze. Her mind raced ahead instantly, calculating consequences, rewinding context, trying to decide if this was a confession or a crisis. But before she could respond, before she could untangle the web of meaning, someone else had already heard enough. Sheila Carter, in the shadows, listening, always listening. She was supposed to have left. Deacon had sworn she was gone. But Sheila never really left anything. She just went quiet long enough for people to forget the fire. And then she struck the match again. This was the match. By the time Taylor returned to her car, Sheila was already at work, twisting the truth into a weapon. She spun the story with venomous precision. Deacon told Taylor he needs her. Can you imagine? She said to Steffi's assistant the next day, pretending it was a harmless tidbit overheard during a routine visit. Poor Hope, poor Brooke. But Taylor? She always did have a thing for complicated men. By noon, the story had circulated from the Forrester executive suite to Spencer Publications' gossip mill. By evening, it hit the press. Taylor and Deacon? Sources say secret romance brewing behind Brooke's back. Steffi confronted Taylor within hours. Mom, is it true? Her eyes were wild with panic. Did you get involved with Deacon again? While Hope's life is falling apart? While Brooke is still cleaning up the mess with Dad and Ridge? Taylor shook her head, but hesitated just long enough for doubt to creep in. He said something, yes. Something emotional. But I didn't. That doesn't matter. Steffi cut in. It's out there now. And it's affecting us. It's affecting me and Finn and the company. Do you understand the kind of chaos Sheila is trying to create? Again? That was the moment Taylor realized what this really was. Not a romantic misstep. Not a lapse in judgment. But a power play. Sheila had been waiting. Watching. She didn't need to push Deacon off a cliff or spike someone's drink this time. All she needed was a sliver of truth and a whisper of implication. And now she had both. Taylor knew what was coming next. Sheila would keep feeding the fire, creating tension between Deacon and Hope, Brooke and Ridge, Steffi and Finn, divide and conquer. Classic Sheila. And if Taylor stayed silent, the fallout would be massive. But speaking meant something worse, stepping back into the storm. She had spent years crawling out of the chaos of Forrester-Spencer dynamics. She had clawed her way back to mental health, stability, and independence. She had no interest in being the therapist, the referee, the buffer zone. Not again. Not now. But this wasn't about her anymore. It was about Steffi. It was about Hayes. It was about watching the next generation being dragged into the very same war zones she had barely escaped from, and knowing she had the power to stop it, or at least contain the explosion. So Taylor made a choice. She didn't go to Brooke. She went straight to Ridge. He was in the design office, arguing with Thomas over the latest collection. When she walked in without knocking. We need to talk. Alone. Ridge knew the look. He sent Thomas away. What's going on? Sheila, Taylor said bluntly. She heard something she shouldn't have. She's twisting it, using it, and if we don't stop her now, she's going to burn all of us. She explained everything. What Deacon said, how she didn't respond, How Sheila ran with it. Ridge listened in silence, the muscle in his jaw ticking. Why didn't you come to me sooner? Because I didn't want to be in the middle of this again. Because I didn't want to be dragged back into you and Brooke and Deacon and Sheila and all the garbage that never ends. But now you're in it, Ridge said. We both are. That night, Ridge confronted Deacon. The two men nearly came to blows in the alley behind Il Giardino. You gave her leverage, Ridge growled. You opened the door, and now she's inside all our homes again. Deacon didn't deny it. I said something real. I didn't mean for it to get twisted. Nothing is real with you, Ridge snapped. And now Taylor's getting dragged through the mud. The tension exploded in the tabloids the next morning. Leaked photos, blurry and clearly staged, showed Deacon and Taylor outside the hospital. Arms touching, expressions tense. Is romance blossoming, or boiling over? Hope cornered her father. Did you lie to me? Did you lie to Brooke? Deacon was trapped. No, I didn't lie. But I didn't tell you everything, either. And now Sheila is using you. Again, Hope's voice cracked. How many times are you going to let her destroy the people I love? Meanwhile, Brooke was unraveling. Her relationship with Ridge, newly repaired, was already under siege. The old insecurities clawed back to the surface. Why is she always there? Why is it always Taylor in the middle of everything? Katie tried to mediate. Donna tried to redirect, but Brooke was on fire. And in the middle of it all, Taylor stood still. She didn't run. She didn't beg. She didn't feed the scandal. Instead, she called a press conference. The Forresters tried to talk her out of it. Ridge warned her that public exposure would only make things worse. But Taylor was clear. If I let Sheila control the narrative, she wins. If I tell the truth, even if it's messy, we take back control. At the Beverly Hills Hotel, under flashing cameras and murmuring reporters, Taylor stood at the podium and addressed the city. Yes, Deacon said he needed me. No, we are not in a relationship. I am not dating him, nor do I intend to. I am not involved in a love triangle. I am involved in cleaning up the emotional warfare that Sheila Carter continues to wage against my family, she continued, cool and direct. I am a psychiatrist. I know manipulation when I see it. Sheila is trying to fracture alliances. Between me and Brooke, between Ridge and Deacon, between Hope and her father, between Steffi and her peace. I won't let that happen. The room fell silent. The headlines shifted. Not scandal. Strength. Sheila, watching from a motel room, hissed with rage. The plan had unraveled, but the war wasn't over. In the weeks that followed, Sheila tried to pivot. She planted a story that Taylor had used Deacon to stay relevant. She suggested in anonymous online forums that Taylor was emotionally unstable, unfit to practice. She left veiled threats in voicemail messages. You're not a heroine, Taylor. You're just the next obstacle. But this time, Taylor was ready. She had Ridge's support, however fractured. She had Steffi's full trust. Even Brooke, grudgingly, acknowledged Taylor had done the right thing. The old rivalry simmered down, not into friendship but into mutual defense. For once they were on the same side. And Deacon? He faded to the background. Humbled, quiet, realizing, perhaps too late, that his heart had played into Sheila's hands. And in doing so, nearly cost everyone everything. By the season's end, the boardrooms were quieter. The family feuds, though not healed, had found momentary ceasefire. And Taylor, never the loudest, never the most dramatic, had done what few before her could. She faced down Sheila Carter, not with force, not with vengeance, but with clarity. And she won. But in the final scene, as Taylor sat alone in her office, watching the city lights blink against the darkness, she whispered softly to herself, just because you end the war doesn't mean the battlefield disappears. Fade out.
Oh,